I was talking to your wife about
Yes.
the. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for them. She was telling me, and it was really fascinating, what this book right here.
Yes. That's
What?
the Buddy Holiday first volume, volume one's Painless Snell edition.
Yes, painless now. She said that you had a pretty good.
Sorry about that.
You're good. You're good. No, I will just. Don't worry about it. I got you. I got you. What? You guys had it in a safe. You guys have it back in Texas. I think she told me.
So we have the vast majority of the acetates to match the images in that book, the images that are on the wall behind us here in Masters, and then there's more originals that are also in the same original frames that are in the museum in Central Texas.
Yeah.
So the acetates that match all that we have in the Lynch family, which would be Tahiti Felix, Tahiti Maurice, and Tahiti Heroes family safe. We brought that back a couple years ago from their estate. It's probably about 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide and about 2.5 feet deep. It's solid steel. It weighs a little over 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So we keep the acetates in that because some of them are nitrate and some of them are acetate. So
She was telling me they were flammable.
the nitrate's flammable and the acetate's not. And it's really only flammable. It needs a heat source and like a light source. So if you put it in the window, behind the window of a shop, and the sun's beaming on it right, and it starts to break down, it gets has a very distinct vinegary smell, and it gets oily. And then that grease could then self-combust, which is why old shops used to catch on fire every once in a while. That was what it was really from. It was their acetates, what we now just refer as acetates, but the
Just for color.
oh sure.
Yeah, because the blue on blue, gets kind of lost. I just did it. I was looking at it. I was like, oh, that looks so much better with the art.
Okay, that's no problem.
Yeah,
So
but no, but please continue. Yes.
so the cellulite nitrate is what's flammable. They use that a lot earlier on. If you look into old stories of movie theaters catching on fire, that was the nitrate that would catch on fire running in front of the bulb. It would get hot, and the plastic would catch on fire, or the film would catch on fire. It was referred to as fire film. So that's where they reformulated the plastic into acetate, which is a lot less fire prone, and it's a lot of what we have now is a lot safer, but it still breaks down. It gets real warped in the sunlight and stuff like that. So just as a precaution, we keep it in the safe because should something try and ignite, at least it's inside a giant firebox versus being outside of that.
Yeah. Plus, she said no oxygen.
Minimal
Hopefully.
oxygen. I mean, there's oxygen in there. There's air inside there, so there's something, but it'd be minimum. It would extinguish a little easier because that flame would need once it's fire. Once it's going, it needs more oxygen to keep burning. It'll just absorb all that and then extinguish itself out.
Have you had a problem like that before?
No, fortunately, very fortunately, we've never had a problem with that, and I'm very fortunate. I don't know anybody who had a problem with that, but I do know that a lot of collectors choose not to collect acetates because they're worried about that flammability.
Wow. So yeah, one of the things that was really interesting, she was telling me about Painless Now and how she had like 6 shops around here.
Yes. So Painless Nell was married to Huey Bowen, and their business name is Bowen Enterprises. If you were to look it up through probably like the county backlogs, and they had, I think at their peak, they had 6 shops in the San Diego area. If you want more details on their businesses, you could always talk with Jason Betts. He's the owner of Oceanside, or the arcade in Oceanside Tattoo. He'll also be here this evening at some point. These are some of his pieces that he put on loan for the show. These are all originals from Tahiti Maurice.
That's crazy.
And he could help double verify the story because he's a local and he's looked into a lot of this. But yeah, they had 6 shops. I believe their last shop is now, the location of their last shop is now Ace Tattoo. It's changed hands a few times since they sold it out, but I believe that's their last location here in town. And it was pretty interesting. They had a lot of shops, a lot of art, a lot of artists. From what I've been told by Hero is Huey. A lot of people thought that Nell pushed Huey out of the tattooing business, and inside the larger book, the 75th anniversary book, in the back is acetate collections. A lot of those acetate images are Painless Nels and Huey Bowens, and there's a couple other people that are in there that are inscribed into it. But Hero was telling me that Nell never pushed Huey out. What he ended up doing is, as their business grew, he would drive around and go shop to shop, or walk around, or whatever he did. However he moved around the city, I don't really know, but for lack of better terms in today's world, he would go shop to shop, driving around, and he would take all the old machines that were out of tune or messed up or whatever, and he would drop off good ones that ran, and he'd go to the next shop, and any supplies that these shops needed, his full-time gig was just keeping all the artists going, keeping all the machines going. So he had the fortunate position that their business grew so much that he had to just constantly monitor and manage all the shops. He never actually quit tattooing for that reason.
Yeah, just too much busy work.
Yes.
Too much, managing is a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, even in today's world, a lot of artists, if you give them a coil machine, they don't know how to tune it, or they don't know how to tune it to the fittings and the likings that even they like it to run at. They might be able to keep it running, but it might not run the way they want, or they might not understand the spring tensions and things like that.
I know from experience. Yeah.
So he was kind of given that hat, like, you know how to do this, this gets to be what you do now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times I think our passion or where we belong in the industry kind of finds us.
Yes.
So, I mean, who are you? I guess that might be important if I'm putting you on camera.
So I married Amy. Amy's been in the tattoo world for the last, probably like, I want to say she started in '97 in South Texas. And she just started like working as a counter girl in the shops, and then working her way along. And I'm from the East Coast, out in North Jersey, and I used to get tattooed by different guys in like Ron's Tattooing in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and so people like Eddie Peralta used to tattoo me years ago, and as I grew up, I joined the service and kind of started traveling around and meeting things, and I fell in love with tattoos on a different level. I've done tattooing. I don't have any passion for doing art on I don't want to talk to people all day long. That's the honest truth of it. Like,
that's okay.
There's a fine line in what you guys have to do as an artist, and I don't want to sit there and do that. I do like drawing. I do like tattooing. I don't like hearing somebody else's problems all day long. So I choose to not do that side of it. But I really like managing things and helping things out. We met Gil a little over a decade ago, and we hit it off. We became real close friends. We traveled to a lot of conventions together and stuff like that. We would go to Mike Skyver. Mike Skyver's like our tattoo father, and he had the museum out there in Pennsylvania, in Western Pennsylvania, and we used to just look at our little collections of things and think, man, one day it'd be great to have a tattoo museum. So we just slowly started buying things and boxing things up. I personally don't like it when you can't come into a place and see the museum. When you come into Masters here in San Diego, it's really hard to match another shop that's got this much original art on the walls. It's kind of overwhelming. I would imagine for someone who's never been in it but is into tattooing and follows the old school and the traditional imagery, it's a very breathtaking, overwhelming thing to kind of step into because, it's just, there's a lot in here.
Absolutely.
So we started collecting more and more, and then we slowly built up enough money to buy our building, to put the museum into it, and open up our museum. And then Gil was asking if he could help branch out with some of his stuff. So then we went at the extra step. And we turned Masters Museum, the one that's in Central Texas, the Camp Tejas one, is an official nonprofit through the federal government.
Wow.
So we are an official museum recognized by the government. And everything you see is just done by either the family or the bootstraps of us just paying for things. There's never been a handout or a fundraiser or anything like that, really. It's just a passion to be able to, this is a legacy. Hero's standing here. He was tattooing in this building or in this town. He tattooed. This building moved to here shortly after Gil took over. He tattooed 2 doors over up until 2009.
Yeah.
So to be able to share the stories with him and listen to what he's saying and see it continue to grow, it's an honor to carry the legacy forward because their family has been dedicated to this. And then when you get brought into the family, you get a lot more understanding to the backbone to what's making all this happen. Why did they choose to keep so much of this stuff? A lot of the stuff you see here wasn't kept in the shop. It was kept at their home.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go up to their home and find different boxes and different things that were just kind of forgotten about over the years. Some of this flash that's, let's see, all this flash on these 2 boards, and then some of it on that board down there. We found that a few years ago. It had been wrapped up. I don't remember the year, but there's a video of it with me finding it in the rafters inside their shed.
Wow.
And it was wrapped in newspaper, and whatever the date was on the newspaper, I said it in the video. But this art had been wrapped up since 1972 or something. It hadn't been seen in 50 years, and it was just sitting up here. And then more of these pieces that we found are now sprinkled back into this shop. There's a lot. It's part of the, for us in Texas, where it's a little different for us in Texas because I look at all this great stuff that people are holding on to, and you look at all the machines that they want and the art. Machines and art's what a lot of the collectors want. I think if you've got a great collection at home in a box, it's really great for you. I understand that you love it, but if you don't have a way to ever put it on display for someone, I feel as though when we had our stuff sitting in boxes, I felt bad because people that worked with us were like, you have stuff, but I've never seen it. And I said, well, one day it'll be on display, and we worked to get to that point. But I do understand some people have goals to getting to, but I also know people that have some great stuff in boxes that'll never see the light of day, and that's a little puzzling to me. It's just my own opinion.
Feel the same way.
But I really like collecting a lot of other things. I'm wearing one of Hero's shirts from 30 years ago.
Wow. I was not aware. That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
There's certain things that they have that their mojo gets carried along through.
I agree, yeah.
I've got the keys to their old house, which mean nothing to anybody.
Right.
It means nothing. Who cares about keys? But it's got their house number stamped on it. There's family pictures with them standing in front of the house with the number over their head. So the key says the road number, the road name on one side and the house number on the other. If you look at one of their famous family pictures, it all adds up to that one key.
Oh, wow.
I think that's interesting. I always say to people,
got me hooked.
Well, what about Sailor Jerry's pipe? Who's got that?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
That'd be cool to see.
That would be cool to see.
Or, Cap Coleman's hat that's in the famous picture that everyone's seen that picture with and he's got his dagger on the wall with pinning the art to the back side of it. But where is that? Where'd that dagger go? Where?
No, he already bought it.
Oh,
who just wants to pick it up.
You're
But-
okay.
Yeah, it's like, where did Cap Coleman's cap go? Where did that dagger go? Like, that's all just meaningless items. Unfortunately, when someone passes, it gets to the point where I think we just overlook it a little bit. And I've got different pipes that artists who have passed on had handmade and put their names on it. And to me, that's important. Like, it's more than just their art and their machines. It's their whole life. We've got Captain Jim's jeweler's lathe that he made the tubes for everyone's machines. And
Wow.
Hero gave it to me. It was in his garage, and he said, "Oh, that was Captain Jim's jeweler's lathe. He made all our tubes with it." So Hero's father, Felix, taught Jim how to tattoo, and then they remained friends. And then afterwards, at some point, Hero somehow ended up with this machine, and then he held on to it long enough to give to me and say, like, "Well, why are you interested in this?" Like, because this is part of what made all the magic happen for everything else. All the art wouldn't exist if there wasn't a tube to keep it coming along.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I collect a lot of weird things, and then a lot of what we have a certain dedication spot in our museum to modern tattooing, because in today's world, we're throwing our history out with every tattoo that we do.
Yeah.
We live in a disposable world where we're throwing out plastic tubes. We're throwing out, there's no, the needles all come from China, and there's no real value to them. But you go into you come into here, you come into Masters, you go to any tattoo collector's shop, and you look in and you see old needles on brass bars and old needles on, and you're looking at that and you're thinking, or like the little packages of the sewing needles that they have to cut the bobs off, and you look at all this different stuff, and somebody kept it for so long. But now we just get our stuff and say, man, it's just trash, and throw it out. So I can't keep all of it because there's way too much at this point, but we keep little pieces of all of the current stuff as well.
But you do what you can.
What we can.
Yeah, definitely. I respect it. It's amazing. And I'm a big history. I love learning about history. Like
Right.
ancient Rome and money and stuff like that. Money is one of the things I really like to collect.
Right.
Especially because it doesn't occupy a lot of space, but the time. You think about the time. Like,
Yeah.
Like you have a 1,000-year-old coin, you got to think how many this was once
Right,
used
right.
to buy bread. And isn't it amazing? The testament of history from like this guy here. He tells me all about the history, and he's full of knowledge
Right.
about how it was back then and stuff like that. And when he gets on one, it's
Right.
you're on a long ride, but it's a good ride.
Right.
And seeing these things that mean to us,
Right.
that testament throughout time. And back then, they're like, this was just the thing, like even to them, like how they were saying to you, why do you want this?
Right.
It's like, this is just whatever. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like this is the foundation of our meaning.
Sure.
For us.
Sure. Like I'm into the hand tools. Like there's a file. Who cares about a file?
Oh,
like you could buy a
yeah.
file today. Yeah, but somebody already used that file. They use that for all these tools that we look at in the whole entire bin, everything else. Like this is their work tools. That's important stuff.
Yes.
I think that the value in the hand file is arguably as equal to the value in the tattoo machine that they didn't build, that they got from somebody else. They didn't build the file, but the file helped build all the other stuff. It helped keep everything going.
Yeah, it's part of the legacy, because now you can like buy something and it just comes like, you don't have to build it. And
Right.
back then, you couldn't just buy something on Amazon. You can
Right.
just order it. You can just get a machine.
Sure.
You can get a machine right now. I can have a machine delivered probably same day.
Yes.
From somebody if I really wanted to. But back then, you had to like build them. Even when I started learning how to tattoo, which was close to about 16 years ago, when I started
Right.
getting into the business, like there wasn't really any information available online. You could barely buy anything online.
Right.
Barely. It was like Huck Spalding, Superior Tattoo, and shit like that, Unimax. And back in the day, machine builders, like like all those things. So I'm saying this because I respect that, because
Right.
those components are all part of the puzzle.
Sure.
They're all part of the piece, and it's
Sure.
fascinating to me. I do love a lot of that. So,
Right.
and it's nice to hear it. So
Yeah, I get really, and like now I think people are catching up to that thought, and I know there are people that are out there that do understand that. There are a lot of machine builders that look at, like a Paul Rogers, when Paul Rogers' workshop got purchased, and then his shed is, wherever they moved it to, whatever warehouse it's in now, and he's got the tools in it. I know there's people that would go in there and really enjoy looking at those hand tools, and I'm glad that there's that, but it's odd to me that it's not in a bigger number.
yeah, it's like when you see old surgeon's tools,
Yes.
and it's like a saw, that they use for amputation and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's the same deal. Like, I don't know if you have, but I have helped people build machines and been
Oh,
there
yeah.
helping them with the rigs, and I've wound coils and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And all the different tools there, and that was advanced then. That was like maybe like 2010. I
Right.
mean 2012 ish
Right.
era, and you got to think way back when too.
Right.
And there a lot. What's crazy about that too is that tattooing was a sacred art. It was kept secret. A lot of the ways to build things.
Yes.
I've heard stories about how you'd have to leave the room for them to tune your machine.
Right.
You're good. I was just checking that.
Right.
Hi. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
As far as like the secrecy of tattooing goes,
Well, yeah, and the machine building and stuff like that. I mean, you seem very into the tools of the trade.
so yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. I've become friends with a lot of machine builders over the years, and I've been close enough with the majority of them that they'll invite me into their workshop, and they'll show me everything that they do. I'm a pipe fitter by trade, and I do a lot of welding.
Okay.
So when I look
Yeah.
at what they're doing, I can talk about the different processes they're going through to get to the final step.
Yeah.
So they know, at least I know what I'm talking about with certain things. And then now over the years, the machine builders that I respect, the majority of them have invited me into their homes and into their workshops. So I'm very fortunate for that. Being that realistically, I'm just a guy who carries knowledge and the respect for tattooing. My wife owns this business, and I just help her with it, and I manage the shop. And these machine builders know that when I come into their home and I come into their workshop, that I'm not leaving with the intent to go duplicate or replicate whatever they're doing. I'm just going to go back home and keep living the life that I do. And some of the guys, I've gotten to the level where sometimes I'll be able to go home and sit down in my workshop, and I can do a little bit of R&D for them with early release machines, or I'll do R&D for like something that's already out. There's a machine that's on the market right now that's out, and I'm trying to make a smaller version for my wife. She's got small hands, and it'd be easier, I think, if it was smaller, but I also think if it was smaller, there'd be other people that might like it. So I think I have it all worked out, and I have to send my prototype back to the machine builder, and then they can get full credit for it, and they can do whatever they want with it. They can, but it gives them, it speeds up their process because it's a different angle to look at the same project they're working on. Like, oh, I could do this potentially too, and then they can take it and test it and make it fail. So I've been really lucky with all the machine builder friends that I've made, and it's helped me learn a lot. And like, it's really interesting. Like I said, it's interesting to see how many people don't know how to tune their machine, even if it's together and there's nothing broken. They just can't get it back to running.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy too is like here. This might be a trip to you. Is like this year, but a while ago, I did a guest spot at a shop, and this is kind of what kickstarted my desire to do the
Right.
recording, is because when I was in the shop, everyone used pens,
Right.
which is fine, like nothing
Sure.
against that. But I use pens, but I also use coils.
Right.
I use everything. Sometimes I need a pen, sometimes I need a coil. Right.
Right.
I'm not going to do.
There's a tool for every job.
There's a tool for every job. I'm not going to outline a ribs or a clavicle with a rotary.
Right.
That would just be insane. I would get a nice, powerful coil liner,
Right.
you know, and uh, when I asked the apprentice there, and I was like, I was just talking. I'm
Right.
like this. I'm like, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And I asked him, I was like, is there any on-bar needles in this shop? And he thinks about it, and he's like, no, there's not a single on-bar needle in this shop. I was like,
Wow.
that's insane to me.
Yeah.
Just the idea of that, because when I started, I got some time machines. Somehow I got some time machines. Those were my first machines. I tore them
Right.
apart, put them back together, tore them
Right.
apart, put them back together. I helped a guy I worked for. I helped him build machines.
Sure.
So this was all inside out of machines. I am not great at tuning them still,
That's-
regardless. But I have enough skin in the game.
You're comfortable with it.
I've touched it. I've been
Right.
part of it, and that's how I am. Like if I love something, I want to be part of it. I want to get in there.
Right.
I want to touch all the little parts and places and things.
Sure.
And and just understand it better. So it just at some
Yeah,
point.
I talk about the conversation comes up a lot with me, especially with newer artists that I'm friends with that have only been in the business a few years, and they'll ask me, in my opinion, about rotaries versus coil machines. And I've had this conversation with a lot of machine builders, and I'm friends with machine builders that only build coils. I'm friends with machine builders that build coils and rotaries. And I try and break it down in a way that makes sense more to the world and less to just tattooing, because I think at times tattooing really tries to pigeonhole itself to think it's very, very unique when it can be looked at a more level playing field that other people might understand. It's kind of like if I was trying to explain to you what riding a motorcycle feels like and you've never been on one. I said, you ever ride a bike down a hill? And you said, yeah. It's like, well, there's an experience that's similar to it. It's not going to be the same,
Yeah.
but at least it gets you an idea. Like you're not in a car, you're on top of the machine that's rolling down the hill. So I'll tell people, when I learned how to be a pipe fitter, a lot of the tools you use, like you're gonna put a screw in the wall. You're gonna use a drill. You're not gonna use a screwdriver.
Okay. Yeah.
So there are some areas that we had to drill in the concrete where we weren't allowed to make spark. So we had to use different brass hammers and stuff like that instead of steel hammers.
Yeah.
So you come up with all these different things. Well, I was talking with my mentor, and he's a 65-year-old man, and he's telling me how they used to use a star bit to drill holes in concrete. And a star bit, most people have never heard of, but a lot of people, as soon as I tell them what they still use it for today, it makes more sense. Mountain climbers use it to put their bolts in the rock. It's a little drill bit on like a ratchet, and they twist the ratchet and hit it with a hammer, and it makes the drill bit go in without power.
Okay.
So it's like that's a tool that existed and works great, and people still use it today for very specific things. So to say that a coil or a rotary that's so old is out of date, no matter which one you want to look at, there's a time and a purpose for it. So I tell like newer artists, like I depending on what the tattoo is, you have to figure out like, are you looking for the consistency that a rotary is going to give you, or are you looking for the power that a coil is going to give you? Because you can only do so much with certain size motors inside a rotary before it gets too heavy, and coils can offer you a lot more. So I just tell everyone, like in my opinion, as a mechanic, there's a tool for the job, and you should learn both. I know what a star bit is. I've been fortunate I never had to do concrete with it. I know how to work it. You should learn all your tools.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Does that mean you need to learn how to solder needles together? Only if you want to be efficient at your job in a worst case scenario. Or if you just want to learn how that whole process works and how much work is actually going into soldering needles, I don't really see that as a needed thing. You might not need to learn how to do it, but I do think you should at least study how it's done.
Yeah.
Watch a video of someone doing it if you don't have the tools to do all that, if you don't want to invest in all that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I don't think anybody should invest in tools for a trial and error. We're not a college. If we were in a college or a big university, you have a lab set up with all these things that you're going to use a couple times and maybe never touch them again. That's not fair to somebody, as we know, coming in the tattoo world can be very hard and very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to,
Anytime,
share with me. Can I ask you, what kind of impression would you like to make on the tattoo industry? How would you like to be remembered, or what kind of impression would you like to have made?
I think I'd like to just maybe be remembered as a guy who cared about my peers' careers.
Okay. Yeah.
I think like my efforts are just going to help. If you wanted to know something, like if you ever came to our museum in Texas, we open up the display cases. We put old needles in people's hands so they could feel what they felt like and look at them up close. And I think it's really important to remember, like, because like they say, like, remember where you came from.
Yeah.
Some people don't know where they really came from. They've never seen the old school stuff.
Yeah.
So just helping peers understand their career and be able to remember it. That I would like to be remembered as that, I guess, like a fair guy, just trying to help everyone out.
Yeah. Any last thoughts or anything before? Any philosophical thoughts or wise observations, or just things you want to say before closing out?
No, I mean, like Tony Ciavaro tells everybody to just slow down. I couldn't agree more with that. I think that's a really great sentence.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I think it should be applied more than, and I'm not saying Tony is trying to steer somebody away from tattooing with it, but I think it's like, that's a life thing. We say in our shop, I like to tell people when they're trying to come in for a job, like, we're hiring for careers, not hiring for jobs. If you want a job, you can go get a job at Dairy Queen and quit at the end of the summer. I want somebody who wants to learn, grow, and stick with this, because you've been in it long enough to know, and I've been dealing with it, that there's definite points in this that it's not going to be the boom and the hustle and the fun that it once was.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's not going to go back to that. So you got to, just like everything else, you got to sit down and just embrace the suck a little bit and let it come back up.
Yeah, that's for sure. Can you, would you like to plug your stuff, your shop, your online presence? That way I can also send this to you when I'm ready to publish it.
Sure.
And send it out.
If you're curious to come see the museum out in Central Texas, we're located in Killeen. We are outside of Fort Hood, which is now called Fort Cavazos, about an hour north of Austin. You could find us inside Bangarang Tattooing Company's shop.
Okay.
And the name of the museum, you could look it up. It's Camp Tejas Tattoo Museum, or the full name is Tahiti Felix Master Tattoo Museum, Camp Tejas. And then if you look for us on Instagram, it's Master Tattoo 1949 Camp Tejas. Anytime you type in Master Tattoo 1949, you'll see all of our affiliates that we like to stay close with for keeping Felix's tradition and Maurice's and Hero's tradition going forward. And now, though he doesn't want to make mention of it, we're trying to also keep Gil Taimana, who's Tahiti Gil to most people in the tattoo world. We're trying to keep Gil going forward in that, because he's a big portion of that legacy who's keeping this going.
Yeah,
so
he's number 3.
He's number 3, as we found out today.
Yeah.
Hero let us know that.
Yeah.
So
that's a big reveal.
In case you're wondering about the numbers, Hero was kind enough to let me know that Tahiti Maurice is number 1, Tahiti Hero is number 2, and Tahiti Gil is number 3.
Isn't that such a cool legacy?
It is cool. It's super cool. It's cool to have the family here. It's cool that it's still all related. And I don't care what anybody says. I've looked at all the who's the longest running shop and all the other stuff. As far as I'm concerned, this is the oldest family-owned shop in America that is still running. And I know that Bill Hill's in northern, maybe central California. I don't know what part. I know he's north of here. But Bill Hill's shop just hit 50 years this year, so congratulations to Bill for that.
Congratulations. Yeah, wow.
And to my knowledge, he is the oldest single owner tattoo shop in California.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's got his 50 consecutive years. Hats off to Bill. That's a major achievement.
Yeah.
There's the shop that's in, I forget her name now. Barbara. She owns, was it Outer Limits?
I feel like I've heard of it.
It's out by the Pike here in California, and I know that they say that that's the oldest shop in California. But
it's in the Pike.
Yeah, but
that's a legacy. That's a spot.
Right, but that shop was closed for about 20 years with nothing in it. So it was no business for a long time. So for me to, in my opinion, and you could say I'm biased because I'm here, but just by simple numbers, this business has never been closed. It opened in 49 and it's still here today, 75 years later. It didn't take a 20-year break and then reopen. But her shop is in the original location, so which opened up earlier than 49. So oldest location, yes, but it's been different shops over the years.
Wow.
So if you want to look up that information, I forget her name off the top of my head, but it's out there. It's really easy to find.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, that was really fascinating. Everything you just said. It's like I was always hungry, but I never got the opportunity to absorb a lot of history. I broke into I had to like really break into tattooing.
Right.
But now that I'm a tattoo artist, now that I actually can go to places, and, like I've guest spotted here and stuff like that.
Right.
Now I'm a lot of this stuff is for the things I would have wanted when I was younger. So.
Oh yeah.
And I'm loving everything you're telling me is like new information to me. So it's like I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Sure.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So. And I love it, and it's really keeping the spark alive for me.
Yeah, thanks for asking the questions. You can always reach out. Anybody can reach out to me. I'll tell them whatever they want to know. If I know it, I'll tell it.
Sure.
There's nothing in my head worth me keeping because I already know how to use it. But if you don't, if you want that information, you might as well have it because I already know how to use it all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, I appreciate you.
I appreciate
very
you.
much.